Yeah, hello. My name is Mike Hoffmeister, and I'm a professor for business at the Faculty of Business here at the Rotary University. And we have a lot of cooperations with universities overseas, and a very, very special relationship over many, many years we have to the Nelson Mandela University in South Africa. And I'm very proud to have an interview partner here who is very knowledgeable in business and also in applied business and leadership practices, Dr. Roger Muller from the Nelson Mandela University. Roger, hello, thank you very much that you are here live in our interview. Thank you very much. Welcome here at our university.
Guten Tag, and thank you very much. Hello, Mike. So happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Just as a background, Roger and I started a new project where I went down to South Africa with 14 students from our Faculty of Business, and together with 14 students from the Nelson Mandela University, we did a joint seminar in South Africa on the topic of intercultural intelligence, and that was a big, big success, because if you have to learn about culture, you have to meet culture. It's not like textbook knowledge, it's real experience the people made, and that was a huge success. And again, thank you very much for inviting us to this special event. The students still talk about it. But now let's come to the topic of today. And I would like to discuss with you the Corona situation in South Africa and the link to Ubuntu. So I learned about Ubuntu the first time when I was in South Africa. Can you explain to our audience what is Ubuntu?
Yeah, certainly. Ubuntu, is an African value system, and it's a philosophy and also a way of life in Africa and in South Africa. This philosophy denotes that we are all as humans interconnected, and we are inseparably bound by a common humanity. Now, Ubuntu is an ancient African worldview, and it's based on, some values of intense humanness, of caring for each other, sharing what you have, respecting each other, and having compassion. But also about being collectivist, and also about, doing things in solidarity. So this word Ubuntu that you've mentioned, Mike, is very difficult to render in Western languages. Mm-hmm. But the essence of what Ubuntu is captured in this African aphorism, which is Muntu, Umuntu, Ngabantu, which is a Nguni word. And if I had to translate it to English, it really means I am because we are. Me as a person can only be a person through other people. So there is no me without you. So Ubuntu in the English language can be described as humanness, or being human, or becoming more human. Mm-hmm. So in short, that is what the epistemological meaning of the word Ubuntu is, and how it, if you had to translate it into the English language.
Okay, can you give me some examples how people in South Africa live the Ubuntu lifestyle?
Yeah, so, people really in Africa experience a lot of hardship and difficulty. Poverty, disease is very rife. So a person with Ubuntu would, even if he has very, very little, if he has, one slice of bread and another person asks him for a piece of bread, that person would be inclined to still share that one, slice of bread, because if he only has one, and to you and I, it might seem very little, he still has more than the next person. So, it's a deep sense of I cannot be human and have bread alone if you don't have. It's all about how I respect everyone else around me, because that respect means that I treat them equal as I am. So, in everyday sense, neighbors, even though they may live in an informal settlement in a shack, they would still find a place to accommodate somebody who does not have shelter, even though there might already be 10 people living in a small dwelling. So in an everyday, domestic type of environment, those are the sort of things that are quite common, if for people who's living with Ubuntu.
Okay. Roger, before we come to the impact of Ubuntu on the COVID-19 and Corona situation, can you give me a general information of what is the status quo of the COVID-19 situation in South Africa, and maybe also especially in Port Elizabeth, where the Nelson Mandela University is placed?
Yeah. No, certainly, Mike. The COVID-19 situation in South Africa and in the Eastern Cape has really taken a turn for the worst over the last month or two. In January, we reached a peak in our number of infections, and we had 22,000 new infections in one day. And that was really the second wave of infections that we've experienced. The first wave was last year during our winter months. And now with the holiday season amongst us and everyone spending time and at the beach and at resorts and traveling, that gave rise to the second wave, and also another lockdown where we were not able to travel and use resorts, and liquor stores were closed. Restaurants were not allowed to operate and sell liquor. So in terms of where we currently stand, we have turned the corner now from the second wave, and our infections are decreasing again. But in South Africa, our total cases are sitting on 1.46 million coronavirus infections. 1.2 or 1.32 million has recovered already, and we've had 45,000 deaths. But the Eastern Cape and Nelson Mandela Bay or Port Elizabeth, where we live and where our Nelson Mandela University is, has been what we call a hotspot for coronavirus infections. And by and large, it's as a result of people's behavior. But also we know that this pandemic has been cutting quite heavily into the poorer and the more destitute of communities. And the Eastern Cape is one of the poorer communities or provinces in the country. So, those who cannot afford to work from home, they have to go and work. Those who find themselves in the front lines and as first responders in the municipalities and doing, various jobs, they unfortunately are the most exposed, and that's why it's been so devastating for us. So the situation in terms of our hospitals is that, hospitals have been full. People, if you had to go to hospital now for a normal procedure, you would not have a bed because there's no space for you in the ICU. And people are literally being treated, in their cars outside the hospital. People are sleeping on the floor if they have to spend the night in hospital. That's the reality, that we're facing currently with our capacity in hospitals and the COVID-19 pandemic.
What was the reason that alcohol and cigarettes were banned for a couple of months even, right? In South Africa. Yeah. So, as harsh as it might be, I think with, poor socioeconomic circumstances, the knowledge around the responsible use of alcohol is not common in our poorer communities. And as South Africans, we unfortunately have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. So quite often over weekends, people would, consume alcohol in large quantities, and that will lead to fights and motor vehicle accidents. People will end up in hospital in the trauma wards due to stab wounds, ending up in vehicle accidents. And if that is the case, there's not enough beds for people who need to be treated for COVID-19. So the government's decision was, to minimize the impact of alcohol, that people should not have readily access to alcohol. So it was banned for a number of weeks. And now we've moved to a stage where you can only buy alcohol on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, until Thursdays, between certain hours. So over the weekends, the off-site sale and the on-site consumption of alcohol is prohibited. Cigarettes, because people share everything, and as a result of poverty, if I have a cigarette
I would share one cigarette while I'm smoking it. I will share it with another person. And as you can imagine, sharing a cigarette with that's got my saliva on will lead to the transmission of the virus. So last year, it's not the current situation, but last year, even the sales of cigarettes and tobacco was banned for a number of months, and people were really struggling as a result of that. But on the whole, that was a very positive thing because by and large, the opinion is that people managed to keep the infection rate, under control. So that was the situation with alcohol and cigarettes.
If sharing is also part of the Ubuntu life philosophy, what is the relationship? Is Ubuntu, the life philosophy, good or bad for the corona situation? Does it help or does it make things worse because we share a lot of things, like you said, with cigarettes, and that has a negative impact on the infection rate?
Well, it depends on what perspective you view things from. From an individual perspective, it's naturally very hard for people who has been living a life of caring and sharing, to all of a sudden now have to face these rules of I am not able to go to my friend's house who is sick to go and care for him. Bearing in mind that, it's really the community that people rely on to take care of each other. They don't have many of the resources and access to clinics and private hospitals should they need primary and immediate care. So, that support system has been taken away by the pandemic because now people were confined to their homes, and it would be seen as totally the wrong thing to do, to go and visit a neighbor or a family member or a friend to offer help and assistance. But, if you look in that in a positive way, people have been able to find creative ways, to get around those situations. And, if it means, using a child and a child who might be staying in a different room to an infected person to, deliver groceries, in our community where I live even, the community has made WhatsApp groups. So if one family was affected, or had an infection in their home, then the other people in the street would go and help by buying groceries at the local supermarkets and to have medicine delivered. So, in that sense, yes, people have been cut off from each other. But even so, people living with Ubuntu has really risen above the circumstances to make creative ways of helping each other. Would it be, for food, or would it be for any other basic necessities?
So Roger Muller from the Mandela University and Tobias Rahm from the Technical University here in Braunschweig, and myself, we are also planning a research project where we want to research on happiness at work in Germany, in America, and in South Africa. So my next question is, what do you think is the impact of Ubuntu on happiness in South Africa?
Yeah, I think Ubuntu has really, has been the trump card on why South Africans has really built up this high level of resilience. As South Africans, and I think most of our listeners or viewers would know of the hardships of apartheid and the indignities that we've suffered through colonialism over the last 400 years. But yet through those difficulties and hardships, they have been able to triumph over those adversities. It's a simple example that even during protest, and you might have seen this on the news or on TV, when South Africans protest and they're unhappy about whatever circumstances they find themselves in, maybe unfair wages or poor working conditions, they would be toying. The word is toy, and it's a colloquial word for dancing to show solidarity in my protest. So even in times of difficulties, Africans would, through solidarity, be singing and dancing, although it might be, from a place of anger. They will grow their solidarity through that. Yeah. And we know now, many studies are showing that acceptance and mindfulness that rather than resist the difficulties that we're finding ourselves in, the pain of the pandemic we're living through, and illness, if you can embrace those difficult situations, it increases your subjective well-being and your happiness. And I think this is what Africans have been particularly good at. They know they have a choice on how they will allow negative experiences that they encounter will affect them. And they've decided that, these things will not take away their humanness and their dignity. And they embrace these difficult challenges. So the fundamental understanding is that our life will be characterized by certain contrasts and difficulties, but, through gratitude and growing our levels of mindfulness, we can triumph those circumstances.
The point you made that people are very happy and singing and in a good mood. I experienced by myself when we did our seminar at the Garden Wood and Wilderness, and I was so surprised whenever I went to the Spar supermarket, people were happy, the employees were even singing in the store. No? Or when I went to the gas station on the opposite side of the street, and every morning got my nice, lovely cappuccino, the guy was also singing. And here in Germany, like if you start singing in an environment in a store, people look strange at you, what's wrong with you? And that is really was a very positive experience. Roger, one last question. So you also experience Germany a lot, you're a regular traveler, and you also give lectures here at the Westphalia University, and the students love you, you're a great lecturer, you get very good feedback. And you know the German culture quite well. So what do you think can Germans learn from the Ubuntu life philosophy in terms of happiness? Are there any recommendations you could give to Germans to learn from the Ubuntu lifestyle?
Yeah, Mike, look, there's naturally a lot that Africans and South Africans and myself can and have learned from the German people. But seeing that the focus is on what can be learned from Africa, I think, the great gift, as has been said by one of our leaders many years ago, Stephen Biko, the great gift, from Africa, we believe in the long run, is in this field of human relationship, to see the next person that I cannot be without the next person, my neighbor. So, in that way, the world and Germany could have less of a cold and a military or even a professional face, but also a more human face, to try to see the person and not an employee. To see a friend and not a student if I'm a lecturer, to really connect with people at a much deeper level, and to understand, that the people comes first. We say this in business, we say this in management, but, do we really mean that? And yes, a simple gesture like when I walk down a passage, I cannot walk past the next person without making eye contact with that person and greeting that person. And unfortunately, it's something that I've seen quite often traveling in Europe. It's very normal for people to walk past each other and not make eye contact, not bother to greet. And in my experience and in the African worldview, that means I don't see you as a human. I see you as less of a human, because I might walk past a cat or a dog, without greeting the dog. And if I do the same to a human being, then I reduce their humanity to the level of a subhuman. So by connecting and being constantly connected, that really means I have a bit of Ubuntu, and that will give an organization, people, more of humanness and what we would like to see in this world, a world of Ubuntu.
Okay, thank you very much, Roger, for sharing your time and giving this interview on Ubuntu. It was very interesting. And I think we Germans can learn a lot from the Ubuntu lifestyle about appreciation, eye contact, and treating each other as humans. And thank you very much. And also, please say hello to your family, because I also miss your family, your wife, and your children. And I wish you good health. And hopefully, I will come soon down to South Africa. And I wish you good luck and lots of strength. Thank you very much for your commitment. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.